This is a story about a moment when a man who had everything and a boy who had nothing found each other in a way no one could have predicted. But how did that moment begin? With a 6-year-old kid, bold enough to take on the world to find answers. Michael Carter, a tech titan who built a billion-dollar empire from nothing. His office sits on the 30th floor, where billion-dollar deals are signed, where surprises have no place. But that day, a surprise walked through the door. Not a partner, not an investor, but Ethan Moore, a hungry, orphaned boy carrying a secret that could unravel Michael's perfect world. Ethan didn't come begging for money or pity. He came demanding a job for a reason that'll break your heart. Because I'm hungry. A simple sentence, but enough to stir memories Michael had buried long ago. Memories of days when he too was hungry, alone, and had no one. But who is Ethan? Why did he seek out Michael? And what makes a powerful CEO ready to risk it all to protect a stranger's kid? This isn't just a story about a meeting. It's a story about family, second chances, and the things you never see coming. Have you ever met someone who turned your life upside down? Stick with us, because this story will make you laugh, cry, and believe that no one is too small to change the world. Drop a comment now. What do you think Ethan will do next? And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to spread this magic. Michael Carter had never been rattled in his life. He'd faced tough investors, steered high-stakes boardroom battles, and built a culinary tech empire from nothing. But now, sitting across from him was a 6-year-old boy who walked into his office like he owned the place, saying words that stopped Michael's heart cold. "I need a job," Ethan Moore said, his voice steady, without a hint of doubt. Michael raised an eyebrow, trying to keep his composure. "A job? You're way too young. Why do you need a job?" Ethan lifted his chin, his green eyes flashing with a defiance that caught Michael off guard. "Because I'm hungry. I haven't eaten since yesterday." Hungry, the word echoed in Michael's mind like a knife. He knew that feeling, knew it too well. Childhood days in Oakland, when his mom worked triple shifts, and he sat on the curb, hoping for a stale loaf from the bakery. Michael had buried those memories, locked them behind the sheen of wealth and success. But now, looking into Ethan's eyes, he saw himself, a boy who thought the world would never care. Michael took a deep breath, his voice softening. "What's your name, kid?" "Ethan Moore," the boy answered instantly, as if he'd rehearsed it. "Where are your parents, Ethan?" Ethan glanced down at his tattered sneakers, hesitating for the first time. "My mom's gone. I don't have a dad. But she said you make the best food, and I saw your name on this building." Michael leaned back, watching Ethan eat. The boy didn't shovel or rush, but ate with the care of someone who knew the next meal might not come. Michael's chest tightened. He'd met hundreds of people, star chefs, billionaires, but no one had made him feel this helpless. "Take your time, buddy," he said gently. "There's plenty of food here." Ethan nodded, but his eyes stayed wary, like he was waiting for someone to kick him out. Michael reclined in his chair, trying to sort his thoughts. Where did this kid come from? Why did he pick me? And why did his comment about the best food send a chill down his spine? Sarah, her name hit him like a forgotten puzzle piece. She'd worked at his first startup, just a few months, then vanished without a word. Michael hadn't thought much of her, not out of callousness, but because his life back then was a blur of 16-hour workdays. But now, looking at Ethan, he saw something eerily familiar. Those green eyes, that stubborn jaw, the way the boy spoke with confidence masking pain. It all stirred a memory Michael wasn't ready to face. "Ethan," he asked, his voice hoarse, "did your mom ever mention your dad's name?" Ethan stopped eating, locking eyes with Michael. "She said he was Michael, the guy who made people happy with food." "I figured that's you." Michael felt the floor tilt beneath him. Could Ethan be his son? The idea was insane, yet impossible to dismiss. He hit the intercom button, his voice urgent. "Lisa, cancel all my meetings today. Pull any records on Sarah Moore, a former employee from about 7 years ago." He turned back to Ethan, who sat calmly, those eyes still waiting for an answer. Michael didn't know the truth yet, but he knew one thing. This boy hadn't just come for food. Ethan was here to change his life. And Michael, ready or not, had opened the door to something bigger than any billion-dollar deal. A chance to be the father he never thought he could be. Michael Carter had never felt so powerless. Just hours ago, he thought he could control everything, from billion-dollar deals to the future of the culinary tech startup he'd built. But now, standing in his own office, he faced a truth that sent his heart racing. Ethan Moore, the 6-year-old boy who'd stormed into his life, might be his son. And worse, the foster care system was coming to take him away. Michael turned to Ethan, who sat there, his sharp green eyes now flickering with fear. Do I have to leave? Ethan asked, his voice small but clear. Michael knelt in front of him, forcing his voice to stay steady. No, Ethan, you're not going anywhere. Not today. The social worker, a stern woman in a gray suit, stepped forward. Mr. Carter, you're not the boy's legal guardian. Ethan is a ward of the state, and his foster home reported him missing. He needs to return immediately. Michael's blood surged. Rules? He snapped, stepping toward her. This kid ran away from that place, walked miles to find me. He said he's hungry, that no one's taking care of him. And now you want to drag him back to the system that failed him. The woman didn't flinch. You have no legal rights, Mr. Carter. If you don't cooperate, we'll call the police. Ethan, from the corner of the room, sprang up and ran to grab Michael's hand. I'm not going. I want to stay with you. Michael felt Ethan's tiny hand grip his, and in that moment, he knew he'd never let this boy go, no matter the cost. No one expected Ethan to do it. The kid had escaped again to find Michael. When Michael got the call from security at midnight, he bolted from his penthouse, heart pounding. He found Ethan shivering outside the building, face smudged with dirt, but eyes fearless. I don't want to go anywhere else, Ethan said, his voice breaking. I want to stay with you. Can I call you Dad? Michael dropped to his knees, pulling Ethan into a tight hug, the world around him fading. Ethan, he whispered, eyes red and stinging. You're everything to me, son. But then Michael's phone buzzed, a call from his biggest investor, demanding an emergency meeting to sign a multi-million-dollar contract. Michael glanced at Ethan, then silenced the call, letting it fade into nothing. No deal mattered more than the boy standing in front of him. Michael had never thought he could love someone this much. Ethan wasn't just a kid who needed help. He was a little genius, with ideas bigger than his years. When did you draw this? Michael asked, astonished by a sketch of a food delivery app interface. Ethan shrugged, like it was no big deal. I always think about food. Mom said I'm like my dad. Michael smiled, but inside, a decision solidified. He'd fight to keep Ethan, not just out of duty, but out of love. The love of a father. Michael Carter never thought a 6-year-old could make him rethink his entire world. Ethan Moore, with his messy brown hair and piercing green eyes, wasn't just a kid who'd escaped a foster home to find him. He was a breath of fresh air, an unexpected spark, and now, the one who made Michael believe his life could mean more than numbers on a screen. Ethan held up a piece of paper, his voice brimming with excitement. This is my app, he said, pointing to the scribbled but unmistakable outline of a food delivery interface. It'll help everyone get food, so no one goes hungry. Michael leaned in, taking the paper, his heart racing. Ethan's simple lines weren't just child's play. They were a vision, the dream of a boy who knew what hunger felt like. When did you come up with this? Michael asked, his voice low but filled with awe. Ethan shrugged, a quick smile flashing. Since my mom used to talk about you. She said you made food that made people happy. Michael looked at Ethan, and for the first time, he didn't see a boy who needed saving. He saw a son, a shining soul, and a future he wanted to be part of. But the joy didn't last. The foster care system loomed like a dark cloud. Michael had hired lawyers, filed for emergency guardianship, but the calls from social services kept coming, each one a warning. You have no right to keep the boy. Michael knew time was running out. He couldn't let Ethan go back to the place he'd fled. One afternoon, as Ethan sketched more ideas in the office, Michael got word from his lawyer. The agency planned to take Ethan tomorrow, unless he could prove he was the boy's biological father. Michael gripped the phone, his eyes darkening. He glanced at Ethan, humming a song his mother used to sing, and knew he had to act, not as a CEO, but as a father. In the courtroom, Michael didn't talk about money or fame. He spoke from the heart. I didn't know Ethan was my son until he found me, he began, his voice trembling slightly. But from the moment he looked at me and said he was hungry, I knew I couldn't live without him. Ethan's not just a kid. He's the reason I get up every morning. The one who reminds me life isn't just contracts or skyscrapers. I want to be his dad, not just on paper, but every day, every meal, every dream. The judge looked at Michael, then at Ethan, who stood and said softly, I want to stay with Dad. The room fell silent, and Michael felt his eyes sting. When the judge's gavel fell, granting guardianship, Michael dropped to his knees, hugging Ethan, feeling like the world was finally right. Michael and Ethan were now a family, not just on paper but in their hearts. They embarked on a new journey together, where Ethan was no longer the hungry boy but a kid with big dreams. and Michael was no longer the lonely CEO, but a father who'd found life's true meaning. Michael Carter once thought his life was perfect. Gleaming glass towers in Silicon Valley, billion-dollar deals, and the reputation of a culinary tech CEO. These were his measures of success. But now, walking hand in hand with Ethan Moore, the 6-year-old who changed everything, Michael realized true happiness wasn't in numbers or titles. It was in the tiny hand gripping his, in Ethan's grin as he talked about his dream to feed the world, and in the quiet mornings when they made pancakes together in a messy kitchen. "Dad," Ethan said, looking up at Michael, "can we really make my app?" Michael smiled, his heart warm. "Not just make it, son. We're gonna bring it to life." Ethan's app, simply called No Hungry Days, became Michael's passion project. Not for profit, but because it was his son's dream. A dream born from days when Ethan went hungry, believing no one cared. Michael tasked his best engineers with turning Ethan's scribbled sketches into a real platform, connecting restaurants with people who need free meals. During meetings, Ethan sat right beside Michael, sometimes chiming in with ideas so innocent yet brilliant that the team laughed and nodded in agreement. Michael looked at his son and knew Ethan wasn't just part of his life. He was the reason Michael woke up each day with new purpose. But Michael and Ethan's story isn't just about a family found. It's a reminder that life always offers second chances if you're brave enough to take them. Michael was once a man driven by ambition, locking his heart away to avoid pain. Ethan was a boy who thought the world had forgotten him. But when they met, when Ethan stood in Michael's office demanding a job, they both chose to change. Michael chose to be a father. Ethan chose to trust. And that choice turned them into a family. Not by blood, but by love, shared meals, dreams woven together, and ordinary days filled with meaning. So what's the lesson here? Don't wait for the perfect moment to love, to change, or to open your heart. Sometimes, the person who changes your life is barely 3 feet tall, with worn-out sneakers and a dream bigger than the sky. Look around you. Who's waiting for you to take their hand? Who could use a meal, a smile, or a home? Michael and Ethan found each other in the unlikeliest of moments, and their story proves it's never too late to start over. Their story rises to the top of the screen, where the cursor blinks like a tiny heartbeat. Michael and Ethan's journey shows us that family isn't just born, it's chosen every single day. So, what's your story? Who's changed your life in ways you never expected? Drop it in the comments below, and let's start a conversation. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe to join our community of dreamers and doers. Because together, we can make sure no one goes hungry for love, hope, or a second chance. Michael Carter once thought finding Ethan was the peak of his life. After battling the foster care system, after the moment Ethan called him dad in the courtroom, he believed the hardest challenges were behind him. But today, standing in a kitchen filled with laughter, flowers smeared on his dress shirt, Michael realized being a father wasn't a finish line. It was a journey full of surprises. Ethan, now 6.5, hopped onto a chair, brandishing a charred pancake like a trophy. "Dad, can this go on my app?" he asked, his green eyes sparkling. Michael burst out laughing, pulling Ethan into a hug. "We might need a bit more practice, son, but your No Hungry Days is launching soon, and it's gonna blow the world away." Ethan's No Hungry Days app had grown far beyond its scribbled beginnings. With Michael's guidance, his team had transformed the boy's dream into a platform connecting restaurants with people who need free meals. But the journey wasn't easy. One morning, as Michael and Ethan prepped for the app's launch, an email from the company's biggest investor hit like a bombshell. They threatened to pull funding if Michael kept prioritizing this nonprofit project over commercial products. Michael stood at his office window, staring at San Francisco's skyline, his chest tightening. He'd built this empire from nothing, and now it risked crumbling because of his son's dream. But when he turned and saw Ethan sketching a new feature, a button to donate pastries to kids, Michael knew he couldn't back down. Launch day for No Hungry Days arrived, and Michael went all in. He rejected the investors' demands, choosing to stand by Ethan. In the auditorium, Ethan took the stage, his voice small but clear. "I used to be hungry," he said, silencing the room. "I don't want anyone else to feel that way. This app is for everyone to have food, to have smiles." Michael stood beside him, eyes red, not from worry, but from pride. As the big screen lit up with the app's interface and the audience erupted in applause, Michael knelt down and hugged Ethan. "You did it, son," he whispered. The app launched to success, with hundreds of restaurants signing up on the first day. Michael knew he'd lost an investor, but he'd gained something greater, his son's trust, and a chance to change the world. Michael and Ethan's story proves that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite the unknown. Michael chose his son over financial security. Ethan chose to share his dream with the world. What about you? What makes you brave? Who would you fight for, no matter the risk? Share your story in the comments below. Like this video, share it with someone who needs a spark of motivation, and subscribe to join us in spreading stories of courage and love. Because as Ethan taught us, no one's too small to make a difference. Michael Carter once thought launching No Hungry Days was his and Ethan's greatest victory. The app, born from his 6-year-old son's dream, had connected hundreds of restaurants with people needing free meals, spreading hope across San Francisco. But today, standing outside a community center in the Mission District, Michael sensed a new challenge. Ethan, with his small backpack and radiant smile, tugged at his hand. "Dad, everyone's gonna love my app, right?" Michael smiled, but unease crept in. "They'll see how amazing you are, son," he said, ruffling Ethan's hair, though his eyes betrayed tension. He'd just learned a group of locals opposed the project, claiming a wealthy CEO like Michael was exploiting their community to polish his image. Inside the center, Michael faced a skeptical crowd. He'd poured his heart into No Hungry Days, not for fame, but for Ethan's dream, a dream rooted in the boy's days of hunger. As he stepped to the podium, ready to explain, Ethan suddenly let go of his hand and darted forward. "Can I say something?" he called out, his small voice echoing. The room fell silent. Ethan stood tall, his sneakers trembling slightly, but his eyes steady. "I used to have nothing to eat," he began, stunning the crowd. "I know what it's like to be hungry and have no one help. This app isn't my dad's. It's mine, so no one has to feel like I did." Michael watched his son, his heart skipping a beat. Ethan, just 6, was facing a room full of strangers, not with anger, but with raw honesty. That moment changed everything. The crowd no longer saw Michael as an outsider. They saw Ethan, a boy who could have been their own, who knew hunger, and was now fighting for something good. An elderly woman stepped forward, resting a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You make me proud, kid," she said, her voice thick with emotion. Michael stood by, feeling a weight lift from his chest. He realized Ethan wasn't just his son. He was a bridge, reminding Michael that change doesn't come from money or power, but from the heart. The launch turned into a celebration, with local restaurants bringing food, kids drawing thank you pictures for Ethan, and No Hungry Days becoming a true part of the community. Michael and Ethan's story reminds us that prejudice can divide, but sincerity can heal. Ethan showed a community that you don't need wealth or influence to make a difference, just a heart brave enough to speak the truth. What about you? Have you ever been misunderstood but still stood up for what you believe? Share your story in the comments below. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to see that unity can change everything, and subscribe to join us in spreading stories of courage and humanity. Because, as Ethan proved, one small voice can echo across the world. Michael Carter never imagined a 6-year-old's idea could touch millions. No Hungry Days, the dream of his son Ethan Moore, had made free meals a reality for thousands in San Francisco. After their triumph in the Mission District, where Ethan united a community, Michael and his boy now faced a bigger dream, taking No Hungry Days nationwide. But today, stepping into a major tech conference downtown, Michael felt a new weight. Ethan, beaming with a radiant smile, tugged his hand. "Dad, everyone's gonna love my app everywhere, right?" Michael ruffled his hair, smiling. "Son, you nailed it here. I believe you can do it anywhere." But inside, worry gnawed at him. Big competitors were questioning the project's sustainability, and some journalists called it a rich CEO's PR stunt. Michael's blood surged. He was used to skepticism in the business world, but this wasn't just about him. It was about Ethan, about his son's dream. He took a deep breath, ready to respond, but Ethan suddenly stood, darted to the stage, and grabbed the mic. "I didn't do this alone," Ethan said, his small voice ringing clear. "I had my dad, the people at his company, and everyone in our neighborhood helping me. I just want no one to be hungry, like I was." The auditorium fell silent, then exploded in applause. Michael watched his son, his heart melting. Ethan wasn't just defending his dream. He was inspiring a room full of powerful people. That moment marked a turning point. After Ethan's speech, major tech companies offered partnerships, and No Hungry Days spread to 20 cities in just weeks. Michael and Ethan traveled everywhere, from struggling neighborhoods to glitzy conferences, sharing their story. But what made Michael proudest wasn't the numbers. It was how Ethan changed how people saw the world. One evening, as they sat on the grass at Crissy Field, watching the Golden Gate Bridge's lights twinkle, Ethan leaned against his shoulder. "Dad, if I hadn't come to find you, would people still get food?" Michael hugged him tight. "You started it all, Ethan. You're the little spark, and now the whole world's lit up because of you." Michael and Ethan's story reminds us that a single small act, like a boy daring to knock on an office door, or a father daring to believe in his son, can ripple across the globe. You don't need to be a CEO or have millions to make a difference. All it takes is a heart brave enough to start. So, what will you start? Who do you want to inspire? Share your story in the comments below. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to see that a tiny spark can light up the sky, and subscribe to join us in spreading stories of hope and action. Because, as Ethan proved, no dream is too small to change the world.